Hi, this is Anna Olsen with AnnaOlsenIntuitive.com. I am doing a show today on mediumship. So we're doing the whole series of insights into consciousness of different types of psychics, different types of mediumships, different things, skills people have that they practice, that they can serve others with. And one of my main goals is to just dispel all of the myths out there. I know that there are a ton of myths that were based on truths, and that's my goal today, is to dispel a lot of those, at least with my practice. And anybody else who practices will have to give you an explanation of how they do readings and how they practice. But this is based on my readings, my business. Again, if you'd like to contact me, AnnaOlsenIntuitive.com. So if you'd like to go on and just listen live, it's going to be on AskOneRadio.com. If you'd like a reading, you can go there too. You can click on live if you'd like to listen, and you can contact them under the proper link if you would like to call in to get a reading. On A1R Radio, you can find them on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, also 101.5 FM, Greenfield, South Carolina. Today, I am so excited to announce the winner of a 30-minute reading with me. It's going to be Lucille, and the last name is, it's Lucy or Lucille, and the last name is Lalonde. So congratulations. I'm going to touch base with you, and we can get started on scheduling you a reading. We can do that on the phone, video, or in person, depending upon where you are in the world and how you'd like to do it. So congratulations on that. I'm really excited to do that reading for her, and I can't wait to do more of these really fun drawings, and so people can win things, because I have some other business people that I'm involved with who are willing to donate some items, some time, some readings, and they're amazing, and I would just love for them to get to know you and to serve you. So on to mediumship today. We have a whole lot of information to go over, and I actually was just messaging somebody about mediumship topics and helping them out with some issues regarding a family member. So today's a big medium day. It's definitely in the air, and I've been really excited to just teach people about this topic. So let's delve in and just start with that we are basically a type of person. We have a skill set, just like anybody has a skill set. So if you go into a courthouse, people are lawyers because that's their skill set, their brains, their personalities, a lot of the things that they were just wired to do by a DNA or environment created them in such a way that they're a great attorney, maybe not so great of attorney, but it's just like anything else. Mediums, psychics, intuitives, we're our own kind of people. We tend to have a specific or a broad specific personality type. We tend to have specific relationship patterns. It's a really neat thing to delve into a little bit psychologically and in many other ways. So first of all, I wanted to go into the fact that mediums have a definition. So this is just, usually people think of a medium and there's this generalization. There's something that it's this foreign thing. Well, I want to dispel some of this and I want to clear it up. So a medium is a term for an interpreter. So it's definitely somebody who is interpreting for or representing a discarnate. So a discarnate would be somebody who does not have a body. It's a spirit. It's somebody who's just in spirit form and they don't have a body to communicate. So they need a little help communicating. So they will do that through a medium. So how is that done? Well, it's done through, direct telepathy with the spirit. This can happen through a lot of ways. So one of the ways is when you're doing it through telepathy, you're going to get pictures. You're going to see things like a movie, like a story. You're going to hear things sometimes. You're going to get psychological feelings, such as emotions, experiences. Much of it is very experiential, meaning it's going to have a feel about it as if you're that person sometimes. I've lost part of my vision during a reading because there needed to be a message expressed about the fact that the person was suffering from migraines and they were not actually losing their sight. So I was experiencing something that I was familiar with from my lifetime, where I'd get migraines and I would understand that this loss of vision was actually loss of a migraine. So that happens. A lot of chills, things like that happen in the nervous system or with the nerves. There's a signal given out and a sensation is expressed. So that's one way. Also an item. I've had a beautiful experience with a woman who let me touch her father's ring that she had on her finger. Suddenly he's standing right by her. And from the ring, I'm getting pictures, I'm getting feelings, I'm getting all of these wonderful messages that she really needed to hear that was accurate. When I saw that he was an Eagle Scout as a boy, I saw an eagle going towards me, and I saw him playing and running around with other Boy Scouts as a child. And this was really fun to see the joy in this woman's eyes, hearing about her father and hearing about how much he loves her. So that's another way to do it. There's also signs, symbols, and smells. Again, it's kind of touching on the physicality of it. Signs and symbols, though, basically when something comes through, they'll know what their loved one communicates with. So sometimes it's birds, sometimes it's butterflies, sometimes it's roses, or these are all signs and symbols. Sometimes it's the shape of a star, or could be an actor on TV. Could be anything that's important to that person where they know that it's them. Me personally, my father will communicate with me through a specific song. So every time I've heard that song, it's been at a time where I really needed to hear from my dad. It's been beautiful and wonderful, and that's another example. So dreams is the last one. Dreams is really interesting because this is where I have experience where I'm dreaming about crimes via proxy. So sometimes I will be the deceased person in my dream and experience how they died. So that I know can be very common with mediums and with psychics. And this is a more scary way to get a message from spirit, but it's a very important way to get spirit message, because this is a way that we can really do work on the earth through spirit. And this is where heaven touches earth, and we get to work with basically people with assignments on the other side, including the person who passed over. So not only to protect others from being harmed in the same way, but to give closure to the family so that they understand that the most that could have been done was done. So what are the benefits and why do we do medium readings? There's a vast array of reasons, and everybody's different. And you'll hear, something different from each person who's gotten a reading from a medium, or when you talk to a medium. But basically, it's an evidence of the loved one's presence. So many times people are still searching spiritually. They're not sure if we have life after death, if we move on. They start to ask these questions when their loved ones pass, because they are then aware of their own mortality. And they start to question, why am I here? Is there a God? If they even believe in God, they start to ask God, why? There's so many processes that people go through when they're grieving or when they lose a loved one. They feel like it's very unfair much of the time, which is totally understandable. And I've felt that too, pretty young, starting out. So it's also a way for our spirit guides, ascended masters, and angels to educate us about spiritual matters. So many times we don't understand spiritual matters unless we are educated by an ascended master or an angel or a spirit guide or a loved one that's passed. Even if you are highly religious and you believe in the Bible and you're very Christian, there's many passages in Scripture that have to do with angels delivering messages, angels working with us to send messages to help others so that others may see light and have a path that is lit rather than dark. So basically, it's a way of light work. We call it light work, and we're light workers. It's also to provide some comfort, some contact and closure for the families. Sometimes people really need this to move on. This kind of grief can be absolutely debilitating. It can be so traumatic that people are not able to continue on with their schedule, with their health, with their regular emotion and their regular way of just functioning on a day-to-day basis. So this is a way to help push them forward and to give them answers to questions that they really need some help with. The last thing is to solve crimes and to find bodies. One thing I really want to touch on, though, is to be careful of fraud. So there are people who are going to try to, just do a reading that isn't really real. And basically, it's either because they're not quite sure where they stand in that process and they're practicing, or they're really trying to take somebody for a ride. So a true reading, to identify a true reading, a medium reading should constitute personality traits of the loved one, the past person, or physical traits that no one else could know about other than the people in the family in the room. So that's how we will gain some messages through spirit to let them know, the family members know, that it's really them and that the message is from them. And that's the way I work. I'm very, very based very factually. I've got to have my facts, got to have those solid evidence. I've got to have my solid scientific evidence, because this is science. The way that I view it, it's energy, it's matter, vibration, frequency, has to do with space, continuum, long list of things that make perfect sense. So a lot of this medium and psychic work, while it can be that somebody's trying to take advantage of you, that is true. The other real part of it is quantum physics has to do with real science and real facts. And that is being tested more and more in universities and around the world in small arenas, small areas. It's spreading to large universities. And even NASA is starting to include facts of horoscope on their reports of space. So, this is really gaining a lot of ground in the science community and with just basic communities. So that's really exciting. And I hope that we keep making strides in the science behind this, because it's real and it can really serve people along their paths into the next life and during this life as well. So I want to talk a little bit about people who have been very, very skeptical of readings, people who are not quite sure if it's real, who claim that they know it's not real. There's a lot of reasons behind that, which I full and wholeheartedly understand. So let's delve into the reasons why people will be skeptical. First of all, maybe they just have never been exposed to it. They maybe saw it on TV and just didn't understand the whole process, didn't know what it felt like, because a lot of these readings, a lot of the fact behind it is how you feel. When heaven touches earth, it's extremely powerful, and it's not something you can explain. It is something that needs to be experienced. So in this experiential process, people who have not experienced that literally cannot say it's not true unless they have experienced it. So that's one part of it. And me being a big naysayer and things that I haven't seen proof for, totally understand that. More oftentimes, these are men. And that's because the male logical brain is more fact-based. It has more to do with the mathematical reasons behind things, the logistics, measurements, science. Women are that way as well. We are more tuned into language and communication with others and the emotionality of it, which can also be science-based. So basically, when you have somebody who has had a bad experience with a reader, they tend to put all readers into the same lumped group. That is understandable, but not fair to readers who are legitimate. And that is where we get bad names, where People are literally trolling people on the internet, trying to get readings in these all sorts of really unethical ways, just basically harassing people, things like that. It gives the rest of the really legitimate people who practice true business a bad name. So that's another issue. You have to really differentiate yourself and your own judgment and with your own inherent discernment and your own sense if these things are true, or if you really resonate with that person, or you really feel like they have a good intention, or if they're really connected. So don't feel bad if you're had, at one point, if you did your best, hey, don't feel bad. Just, really, if you feel drawn to somebody, you can even just ask. If you believe in God, you can ask for the right reader. You can ask for the right experience. You could do your own reading. These things are all possible. So I really want to just put that out there so that people know. So the other part of this skepticism can also be that somebody is just not quite okay with death. Most people aren't completely okay with death. There's a lot of mystery behind it, which can cause some fear. So understandably, a lot of people just are very, very put off by it from the beginning because they really don't want to visit the possibility of their own death that they'll have to face. It's a little scary for folks. So unless they're really ready, they're not going to be able to delve straight into that. It's not something they're ready for. So they become very skeptic. And can also be very, very telling if somebody is a skeptic that that's what they think a reader's doing because that's what they would do. It's a projection issue. They're looking at a reader and saying, well, if I were them, I would try to put one over on this person and get money from them. Well, that's something people do. Sometimes they project their own behaviors onto others and assume that someone else will do what they do. So those are all possibilities of skeptics. They're all understandable. They're all fact-based. And the other part of a mediumship reading is that a reader doesn't always get a message for somebody. Sometimes it's not the right time. Sometimes the spirit chooses not to come through. This is basically rare. It's the same thing with readings. I've had this experience where I go to read somebody and they are completely blocked. Sometimes they've been pressured into getting a reading, or they were just there with friends and they just thought, well, I guess I can do it. And they really didn't want to delve into those things yet. So people can block, and that's a great thing. If they don't want a reading at the time, they're not ready, then they shouldn't have it done. So all these things are part of readings. All these things happen. Again, objects, when I touch an object that belonged to the deceased, either the person can show up next to us and I can start talking to the person via telepathy, or I just get basically energy from the item and I'm able to express many things about that person's life from an object, experiences, feelings, all sorts of energies. So that's another way to do it. That's not as much medium from the object. That's not as much mediumship, but I just wanted to point out the difference between having the spirit there and receiving messages from the spirit by holding the object with the loved one in front of me, and just getting messages from an object energetically. There is a difference. So readers should also be healthy physically, mentally, and spiritually. It's very important. Readers should have their own health in line. Otherwise, you're either depleting somebody or they are not taking care of themselves and they're depleted, and they may not be ready, or they could become ill from expending too much energy. If it's not coming from the right source, it will show in their physical health. You'll be able to see, basically you can see it. People have a pretty good instinct about this, about whether people are healthy or not. So that's something to also be aware of when getting a reading. That also accounts for their light. How do you look at them and see, how they're emanating? Are they kind of putting off a bad vibe? Are they putting out a pretty good vibe? Do you feel really good about doing this? Those are all things to take into consideration, because everybody can have a bad day. Everybody can be in a bad place at different times. Some days, I have really, really good days. Most days I have really, really good days, and this work really fills me up. Other days I'm tired like anybody else. I didn't get a lot of sleep that night, or, I've had a bad day. So these are all things to consider when you're getting a reading from a medium. So just to kind of go into different things about being a medium and the experience of being a medium, is that I myself, when I'm speaking for myself here, as somebody who practices mediumship and many other ways to read, focusing on mediumship, I tend to usually need to really put up a wall against my heart, my emotions, so that I don't end up being really, really affected and upset. Because a lot of these medium experiences, the person has to go through things that were extremely painful. Oftentimes people are crying in front of me. Although they're healing, it's good to just be able to set a boundary there and to understand that this is that person's process and this is my way of helping them through it, and to do it in full love. So a story, this is kind of like how it is to be a medium. So I'm in a car with 3 other people, and we're on our way to an event and with some family and some friends. And I'm speaking with 2 other people who are in the mental health profession. And we have a friend in the car who is just, she has like a sales rep, a very successful sales rep. So we're all driving in the car, and I'm having a conversation about a murder, and I'm having a conversation about something terrible that happened in my community. I'm talking about it matter of fact with the 2 mental health workers, and we're just talking about it matter of fact. And suddenly the sales rep stops, and she's kind of doing this and upset and trying to breathe. And I'm looking at her, and she's like, "You need to stop talking about this. This is really, really freaking me out. I'm really upset right now." And then I realized, oh yeah, not everybody wants to listen to me talk, frankly, about a kidnapping and a murder. So, that is a way, me personally, I tend to be able to remove myself from it a little bit when I'm dealing with it, to help others. And it's a way to distance enough to help and to let them go through their process. And although I care for the person very much, and that's why I do it, I'm able to just shut it down from affecting me in a way where I'm going to get affected in a negative way, like trauma or whatnot. So there's that protective mechanism. I want to go on to some questions from my Facebook page before I end, because I have about 3 minutes. So I want to just go into one question from Neil Garces. He asked, what are the limitations of psychic mediums? Basically, we have limitations like anybody else in our job. Me personally, the limitations that I've experienced, I'd have to know basically what limitations you would be comparing that to, because I would need to know how do I explain this? I would need to know what your expectation would be, and if I'm reaching that, to know where my limitation would be in your expectation of what you think mediums do. So now that I've kind of gone through what mediums do, my limitations are that I don't see exactly where the person is when they've died, where they're living. I don't see most of the time the community that they're living in, or what exactly they are doing work-wise, because I know they learn, I know that they work, I know that they're moving on and progressing spiritually, but I, as a human being, a mortal in body form, am not able to see past basically seeing somebody like I'm looking at them through a window, or they're in another room and I'm able to speak with them. So I'm guessing that would probably be the biggest limitation, including the fact that not everybody gets to have that reading done. Sometimes it's blocked. So that's the best way to answer that. And if you have any other questions, you can let me know. Ephraim Moore asked, do mediums believe in God? I can answer for myself that yes, I do believe in God. It's been a long process. I was agnostic for some time. I had to go through a process like anybody else spiritually. I didn't know exactly where these spirits lived. All I knew is that they would communicate with me. So here into again, we are going into this realm of like, I don't see exactly where they are all the time. Every once in a while, I'll see them in an environment like a garden and they're watering plants or things like that. But I only see the person and gain the message from the individual. They just it looks like they're in the same room as everybody else, except the spirit is in a different form. So the spirit is basically in their spirit form. If we were looking at a spirit and they look like a body, that would be wrong because it's different. So yes, I believe in God. Most mediums I know do believe in some form of God. Now that I have done more of this work, I believe in God more and more. I'm definitely Christian, definitely believe in Christ. That's my take. If you'd like a reading from me, you can always contact me on AnnaOlsenIntuitive.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to have a lot of guests in the future. Next week's going to be my first guest. I'm really excited about that. I hope that everybody has a wonderful week, and I hope to see you next week on Thursday, 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Again, AnnaOlsenIntuitive.com. Thanks so much and have a wonderful week.